Welcome everyone to our channel. Today we are going to have a look at one of the component in Azure, which is Devops Starter. With the Devops Starter, we are going to launch an app running in Azure with few quick steps. We'll examine building and how this Devops Starter is creating the CI/CD pipelines using Azure Devops, and also we'll be able to see how the sample app is automatically created, distributed in the GitHub repo, and how it is completely deployed in the Azure cloud infrastructure. The first and the foremost thing you need to do is you need to log in into the portal.azure.com and then look for the DevOps Starter offering. So here I'm just going to click on the DevOps Starter offering. The next screen, there is an option to create. The moment when you click on create, um, we'll be presented with the option about what language you'll be using to create the project. In our example, I'm just choosing .NET and clicking on next. The moment when you click on next, the next page would be presented to choose the application framework. Yeah, I'm just choosing ASP.NET. I'm clicking on next. The moment when you click on next, now you will be having uh, the possibility to choose the service where the application will be deployed. So in our case, like here we have the Windows web app or function app since we have chosen the .NET. Um, I'm just choosing Windows web app in this case and clicking on next. The moment when you click on next, here is the place where we'll be uh, asked by the Azure where your GitHub repository needs to be access needs to be given to the Azure. So the moment when you click on authorize, basically if you have the GitHub logged in into the same portal, it auto populates the credential, and here you need to put it picks up your GitHub repo automatically. The organization, sorry, it picks up the GitHub organization by default, and the repository you have to give. In my case, I'm just putting yeah, infrastructure. Okay, infrastructure as a code 1 2. Just I'm giving an example. The web app also just creates it like that with the repository name you give, and you need to choose the correct subscription. In my case, I need to choose the subscription Visual Studio with Premium, and the location it auto populates. So here, uh, I'm just going to select West Europe and then clicking on review and create. So what happens, like the moment when you just click on create, uh, there are a lot of things which is doing in the going on in the backend. The Azure will build the full DevOps pipeline and the required resources in the backend. So basically, it would create a team project, add sample code in the source control, creates a continuous integration build, and then continuous deployment release pipeline, and then finally it would be kicking off the build and release pipeline to deploy the sample app into the infrastructure that is provisioned in our Azure. In our case, it is going to be a Windows app which is provisioned by choosing the .NET, which we did a few minutes back. Uh, Currently, we see the deployment is in progress. Yeah, the deployment is complete. After a successful deployment, we get the below screen as an example. We get a below screen as an example. So what you need to do is, for example, uh, go to the resource. Again, you'll be asked for authorized for the GitHub. So here it is doing the second check of verification. So we could still see the GitHub workflow is still being populated, like adding the workflow files. And you see a window that says the Azure resources are not created. They'll be created by the GitHub workflow. So basically what happens, like the source control is maintained in the GitHub. And then once everything is, the workflow is properly created in the GitHub, uh, Azure resources will be created. So basically we need to wait few more minutes. Let us refresh. Maybe still it is. You can see in the backend. So it is creating a GitHub workflows Devops Starter. It has also created its own YAML file. Um, in my GitHub account, which is Satish227, and it has also doing a commit. It is pushing to the branch. It is pushing to the master from the branch. Let's refresh it a few more time. Basically, we need to wait a few more minutes. Yeah. Meanwhile, when it's when it's going doing the deployment, you can also see the cost management. If you want to know how much is the consumption after during the deployment itself, it gives you an option to get notified to stay within your budget and prevent the unexpected changes. You can set up the cost alert for uh, the DevOps deployment you are doing right now. You also have an opportunity to set up a Microsoft Defender for cloud. Uh, so Microsoft is bringing a lot of new things as always. Let's go to the resource now and see if we get some updates. Still it's creating. Okay, so what I can do is, maybe it takes some time. I can just, in meantime, I can take you to previous one which I already created. So this is the first one which I created, infrastructure as a code. So I can show you how it looks after it's been created. So the moment the moment after successful deployment, you see the GitHub workflow on the left side, which is created on my Git repository, Satish227, and the repository I choose is infrastructure as a code. Below that, it has my GitHub workflow, build, deploy, and functional test. Over the right, it has my Azure resources. So this is the application endpoint which has been created for this testing. So, for example, in the GitHub, when I go into the build, we can see it has set up a job successfully, and then it has acquired the required GitHub permission, and then it has set up its own uh, deployment. I did not do anything over here. So what we see is like it has done everything on the back end. The build, deploy, and the functional test have been successfully created in the backend. I have not done anything. So looking furthermore, for example, when I go into the GitHub account, I'm just going into my GitHub account, and in the GitHub workflow, you can see the workflow of the YAML file, which has been created automatically uh, in the backend to carry out the necessary activities. I have not done anything on my side. It has been automatically created in the backend. So, for example, when I go into the settings, there is also an option to control the branches where I can set the default branches. Like um, if I want to do the pull request and code commits, I can always go and change it to a different to different branch. So the default is going to be master. If I want to change it, I can do it from here. Um, and also in the security section we also have the option to when you go into the security section you have an option to control the security part by deploying keys and secrets. For example, when I go into secrets and the actions, I can integrate with the Azure credentials and then control the security part. So when I go back into the code where you see the continuous integration, so this is the build, and when you go into the deploy, the release management will download the package from the source, which is the GitHub, and then finally deploy the app into Azure. All these things are executed in the infrastructure which is present in the cloud. We did not need to do any maintenance. It's completely maintained and done by the Microsoft. um, we also see the status of the app service. For example, when you go into the portal, you see the app service is running and the application insights, which is helpful in a scenario. Like for example, like I can go down and see the server request and failed request, which is also good. With this build and release pipeline, we have a complete control over each and every deployment phases. Furthermore, we can clone the repository locally in any IDE, have a branch file, do the improvements, and start developing the application. For example, even I also have a functional test. In the functional test, I can do all the testing of my deployment before it goes for the before it goes live. So, having said that, this is a short summary of the uh, feature, which is Devops Starter. Feel free to utilize them, and hope you enjoy the video. Feel free to subscribe for more tips and tricks on Azure from our channel. Thank you.